Hey guys! Today I'm making an Artdoll of one of my favorite mythological creatures, Pegasus. But I will not make it pure white like in the Greek mythology, I will add a little more color to it. As always, I start by making two full body references of the Artdoll to the desired size, one for the front and another one for the profile. I start by sculpting the head and the hoofs. I create a core of aluminum foil to save some clay and I cover it with Sculpey medium. I then bake the piece to have a solid base on which I will add all the details. The head and hoofs are finished, I then mold and cast them. I don't show it on this tutorial, but I share my process in another video. If you are interested in it, I put the link of the video in the description. Now that I have my resin pieces, I drill holes in my hoofs and on the back of the head, in order to insert the armatures. I make the frame of the armature using 6 steel wire that I bend in a triangular shape, following my references. I then cut a long wire for the legs and twist it to make it stronger. I use my references to measure the length I need and cut the excess. I attach the leg to the main body with a thin wire and add another wire for the tail. Once everything is in place, I reinforce the points of connection with Apoxie Sculpt, a 2-part epoxy pulley. I fix the hoofs on the armature using hot glue. I do the same thing with the head, but I choose to take a plastic armature for the neck. I measure a length of wire and twist it to make the armature of the wings. I use a light box to draw every feather on a piece of paper. I cut off the templates and transfer them on white felt. I measure a piece of wire for the frame of the feather. I make sure to have enough length at the end to wrap the wire around the wing armature. I put Fabri-Tac on one side, put the wire in the middle, and sandwich another piece of felt on top to make a complete feather. Using a wing reference, I place my feather on it and mark where they meet with the wing armature. I do the same thing with the wing armature in order to know where the feathers will go. Once they are in place, I use Apoxie Sculpt to form the bones. I make sure to leave enough space between the bones for movement. I put epoxy clay on the leg to form the bone. I fix the wings on the body by wrapping the wires and fix everything in place with Apoxie Sculpt. To balance the Artdoll, as it is quite front heavy, I glue some egg sinkers for fishing on the back. I then wrap strips of aluminum foil around the body to secure everything. I use strips of quilt batting that I wrap around the entire body to form the general shape. I tend to put more than needed, as I will tighten everything with a thread afterward. Once I'm satisfied with the shape, I make the pattern for the body. I wrap plastic film around the whole Artdoll and cover everything with duct tape. I then trace the pieces of the pattern and cut them. I transfer them on paper and refine the shape until I'm happy with them. I can transfer the pieces of the pattern on Minky fabric and cut them. I pin the opposite sides and sew them on one side, using my sewing machine. I wrap the pieces around the body and sew them close to it, using the ladder stitch. I create the mane using a strip of felt. I cut strings of yarn and tie them to a dowel. I undo the strands of yarn and brush them to separate the fibers. I then separate the strings and put some tacky glue on the tip to fix the fibers. I glue the strands of hair on the piece of felt and secure everything with my sewing machine. I put them in between the two pieces for the neck and sew them together. To finish the body, I put Fabri-Tac on the end of the fabric and glue it on the head. For the legs, I put some polyester stuffing in the little space before the hoof and glue the fabric on the resin piece. I continue by making the pattern for the rest of the wings. I transfer the template on faux fur, cut it before joining the pieces at the top and sew them together. I make sure to take both pieces of fabric and every feather with each passing of the needle. Then comes the painting. I draw the markings on the body using a friction pen, as the ink will disappear with it. I put masking tape where I want the body to remain white. I use an airbrush with golden thread acrylics diluted with water. Airbrushing Minky fabric can be quite difficult, as the fur tends to clump together, and it ruins the texture. Take your time and brush the fur regularly to avoid any clumping. Another thing to consider is that you shouldn't put too much paint on the fabric, so make sure you have the right color before starting. As you can't really add lighter colors over darker ones, you should always go from light to dark. I start with the light color and add darker tones under the belly and the neck to add dimension to the paint job. When I'm happy with the result, I take the masking tape off and fix small imperfections. I've painted the marking on the wing and the tip of some feathers. I continue with the head. I start with the base color and add shadows and highlights to add dimension. For the hoofs, I put a base color and add more colors for variation. To tone everything down, I add a wash of a light color and take away the excess with a tissue. Once the painting is finished, I add 2 coats of varnish on the sculpted part to protect the paint, matte for the hoofs, satin for the head, and eyeglass for the eyes. I use a hair straightener to straighten the hair of the mane and shape them. I create the forelock the same way as the mane. For the tail, I glue a piece of black felt on the wire and glue the strands of yarn on it before brushing everything. And now, the reveal. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you for the next project. Bye bye!